Well, to start, both President Obama and Mitt Romney would allow the payroll tax cut to expire. So payroll taxes will go up for all working Americans. So that share of their taxes paid to the federal government will increase. President Obama, on top of that, will extend the Bush tax cuts for everyone except for incomes over $250,000, I believe is the cutoff. And those tax rates would go up. So those marginal dollars you earn above $250,000 will go up to basically the pre-Bush level rates that President Clinton left when he left office. For example, the top rate now is 35%. That'll go to 39.6%. So under President Obama's plan, all working Americans will see their tax rates go up, mostly on the payroll side, but for the upper income Americans, they will also see their federal income tax rates increase. President Obama also adds what he calls the Buffett plan, which is the problem that we have in the taxes with all the write-offs, that very wealthy people have very low effective tax rates. So you could be making hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and your effective tax rate to the federal government could be 10, 15%. It's typically lower, as Warren Buffett said, he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary. He pays more in dollars, but his secretary has a much higher rate because she doesn't have all the availability of deductions that he has. So President Obama would like to also enact what's called the Buffett plan. Basically, incomes over $1 million would pay a minimum tax of 30% to the federal government on that income. So no matter what their deductions are, charity, child, education, interest, they would have to pay at least 30% of their income over $1 million to the federal government in taxes. Okay, he will let the payroll tax cut expire as well, so that means a tax increase for all working Americans, but he will combine that with a cut in the federal income tax rates by 1/5. For example, the 35% rate, the top rate, will fall to 28%. So for many Americans, that will be a tax cut. However, there's a bit of a catch. By Mr. Romney's own acknowledgement, about half of working Americans, 47%, really pay no federal income tax, although they do pay a payroll tax. So, and other people who receive income, retirees, may not pay any federal income tax at all. Other people who don't pay federal income taxes are, say, military personnel stationed abroad, and just kind of middle-class, lower-income workers who, after deductions, have no federal income tax bill, but they do still pay a payroll tax. So under the Romney plan, most Americans, probably about 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6 working Americans, will actually, on a net basis, see their taxes go up. The tax cuts will be a windfall to the very wealthy. Everyone will have a reduction in the federal income tax rates, but because the payroll tax increase will offset that for most working Americans, on a net basis, most Americans will see their taxes go up. The wealthy will have a significant reduction in the taxes they pay to the federal government. Neither one really is directed towards economic stimulus. President Obama's plan would probably be desirable in that it would lower the deficit. It would certainly, on a net basis, be a tax increase. And so that would reduce the deficit, which in the long run is a good thing. It would also shrink income inequality a little bit, which may help in the long run as well for faster economic growth over time. Romney, his plan, well, it would raise taxes for many, cut taxes, as I said, for the wealthy. It would expand the deficit. The Tax Policy Center did a study. This is a combination of the Urban Institute and the Brookings Institution, nonpartisan, because President Romney, if he's elected, would try to offset his tax cuts, which would be $5 trillion over 10 years, by eliminating some of the deductions for the wealthy. However, Romney has not been specific about what deductions he'll eliminate, and it's questionable if Congress would pass any kind of tax increase at all, given the climate in Washington, if he's elected. So they find there's no way for him to have a revenue neutral tax plan. So certainly his plan would increase the deficit substantially, and that would also widen the income gap. So in the long run, probably slowing economic growth.